Hey everybody, Coach Jonathan here, and you're about to listen to a very special episode of the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast live from Leadville, Colorado, where Nate is actually prepping it's for the big day tomorrow, and Chad and I are just here to support him. We had a special guest with us, Alex Grant, and he is a professional mountain biker who has raced this race 4 times before, finished 3rd place before. He's finished 3rd place at Elite Nationals, but perhaps even more impressive is that he's an average Joe like the rest of us in the sense that he's a family man. He and his wife have 2 kids. He has a job. He runs a store called Gear Rush. It's a gear exchange place that he's a busy guy like the rest of us, but he still manages to squeeze in the training and also be really, really, really fast. So, well, he's looking to get maybe even a 6.5 hour time or maybe below that tomorrow. We're pushing to see if we can get Nate or how far below 9 hours we can get Nate. So tune in and enjoy. This is a lot of insight, particularly about Leadville, but we try to keep it focused on endurance events and endurance mountain bike events. So I think that anybody, even if you're not doing Leadville, will get a lot of value from this. So hope you enjoy it, and we'll talk to you next time. Welcome to the podcast that's dedicated to making you a faster cyclist, the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast presented by TrainerRoad. This is not us in our normal studio. As you can see, we're up in the mountains by Leadville, Colorado, and we are with our head coach, Chad Timmerman.
Hey, buddy.
Our CEO, Nate Pearson.
Hello.
And special guest with us this week is Alex Grant, mountain bike racer. Geez, you've been racing Leadville a handful of times, racing pro for quite some time. It's good to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hi, everybody.
Can you give us a rundown really quick on, I guess, since we're talking Leadville today, how many times you've done Leadville and what your best finish has been here, that sort of thing?
Sure. Yeah, I've done Leadville 4 times. I actually did it 4 years in a row from 2009 until 2012. And I haven't been back since just due to schedule. And my best finish was in 2011. I was 3rd, and I rode like a 6:35, I think.
That's really fast.
That's great.
Todd Wells won that year. Albin Licata was 2nd. I was 3rd. That was definitely my best finish. And good memories of all 4 of those years, though. So
yeah. Is this normally your specialty? What type of mountain bike racing do you specialize in?
I think I like to say all mountain biking, really. And I prefer a more technical course, maybe a little more technical terrain. And for a while, I was more focused on cross-country stuff. I started my career as more of an endurance guy, and then I went for more of a cross-country focus for a long time. And that sort of ended in 2016. I had a major heel injury.
That was at a World Cup, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. It was at the World Cup in Cairns, Australia.
Yeah.
Alex, so for Leadville, can you give us, describe how technical it is for people who haven't been here before?
Before we get into that,
okay.
Sorry, hold on. Just explaining a little bit about you, though, so then people understand you're a family man. So you're not like a lot of these pro bike racers out here that are just like, they have no responsibilities outside of racing the bike, right?
Got 2 kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Well, she'll be 1 year in a couple weeks. So yeah, two little kiddos and
so
full-time job too. So yeah, it keeps me plenty busy.
Yeah. So that's, like the rest of us, full-time jobs. The majority of people listening to this, we have a lot of other responsibilities other than bike racing. So you don't just get to race our bikes all the time. So I'm glad that we have you here, especially for that reason, because it's a relatable point. All of us go through scenarios where we have to balance.
Semi-relatable.
Yeah.
There's not many people doing 6:30s.
That's for darn sure. Yeah. Perhaps relatable, but aspirational, meaning out of grasp, perhaps for some of us. But so with that though, Nate, let's just dig into Leadville, and we're going to talk all about preparation and execution, basically, for Leadville.
But before we get into the technicality of the course, just to give people a frame of reference for the race. If you go under 12 hours, that's when you get the belt buckle. And that's supposed to be, you get a belt buckle, and that's like the kind of the cutoff time, right? Or can you still finish after 12? You can still finish, but you don't get the belt buckle.
But that's kind of the big deal.
Yeah.
Is, people are out there and you see them, it's like 6:30 and they're like sprinting to the line and people are cheering for that one. I guess by 30 seconds, they get the 12-hour mark. Or whatever.
Yeah.
And then if you go under 9 hours, you get a bigger belt buckle, and that's considered pretty quick.
That's a fast time.
That's a fast time under 9. And then you did it in 6:30. And since then, those races, they've actually pushed it down to 6, right?
Yeah, I think Albin Licata and I think Christian Hynek also went sub 6.
Sub 6.
Crazy.
Yeah, like a couple of years ago.
5:55 or something.
No, like 57 or 8. I'd have to look, but it was
Very
pretty
close.
close.
Squeaked in there.
Yeah.
It just shows you how fast people are. So
Did you think that was in reach when you did a 6:35, like sub 6, or did you feel like that probably just wasn't in reach?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure. I mean, Lance did it, and he did a 6:20 something.
Yeah.
But he got a flat tire at the end. He had a low tire, and then Levi did it in a 6:15-ish. And then that sort of fired up some of the big mountain bike guns to try to go sub 6.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they had a train rolling of really strong guys. I figured it might be in reach. Probably not for me, but for those guys, yeah, they did it.
Yeah.
So what's the course like?
The course it's a old school double track, grinder. These days it almost seems more like a gravel grinder, but it's definitely a mountain bike race. Like there's still a little single track. It's still too rough to ride a gravel bike, but it's a lot of double track, a lot of dirt road, a lot of road, kind of like the roots of mountain biking.
Yeah.
But some people would complain because it's not technical, doesn't have a lot of single track, but that's not why people come here for Leadville. So
To give everyone a point of reference, I rode down the most technical area. What I've been told is Powerline, and that didn't scare me too much. Which
And
I'm a cautious mountain biker.
more
no, it's
backup,
totally
yeah.
accessible for most anyone that's reasonable on a mountain bike.
You definitely have to, for me at least, slow down my speed and take the right line. But it wasn't anything like I want to go home because this is so scary.
So seeing as how this is a mountain bike race, but it's not, particularly technical, or that's not the large concern, what are the big concerns for most folks up here?
Altitude. Altitude and the time out there. The total distance is long. It's 104 miles or something.
Yeah.
And then the altitude and the amount of climbing are the big things.
And what is the amount of climbing?
Oh boy,
Fresh on
I don't know.
10,000.
Yeah, I think it's 10. I was going to say 10, 11,000.
Right
I've
around
heard different numbers based on whose GPS you go off of. But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then the altitude, we start at 10,000 feet, go down to like 9,000-ish, and go up to 12,400, 12,600.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So, and the course is an out and back too, which is an interesting point because that means that you have two-way traffic for a good portion of the race.
Yeah.
So even though it's a double track, it kind of makes it a single track in a lot of situations because you're kind of, stuck into one side.
Yeah, and it's sort of cool that way too, because then you can see people coming up. People can see the guys coming back down and waving at people. People are cheering you on, and vice versa the whole way. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you have people cheering you on, right?
Yeah.
Well, I try to cheer on the people that are coming
Yeah,
up
of
too.
course. Yeah, of course. So I guess let's talk about the elevation side of things. Now, before this, on the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast Facebook group, we put up a spot for all of you to submit some questions that you might have. So we'll be interspersing those questions in as appropriate as we kind of go through this. And the first point, one of the points that people were talking about on the note of elevation, somebody, a man named Jonathan, he has a fantastic name. He said his Nate noticed changes in his power output since arriving at altitude.
Oh, yeah.
And if so, is it coming back as the week progresses? And he says, does the Team Sky data correlate to his performance? Maybe we should explain, maybe Chad, you can explain kind of like the learnings or insights that they
We
were
can talk about
shared
that
with
together.
I think I remember it the best.
Okay.
So what they did is when at elevation, they said on the first day they lost 70 watts. And then after, I think 10 days, it was more like
35.
No, it was just a few days was like 40. And then after the 10 days, it was almost the same. No drop at all. I haven't been here long enough to experience that, but this is my experience. First day I rode.
You came up here Sunday.
Yep, Sunday.
So
race
Sunday
on Saturday. Today's Friday. So I came up just about a week before the race. First day I actually felt pretty strong. Still going up like above threshold. Really like took it out of me really fast. And then that day though, I don't have power data because my shifter broke. It wouldn't shift. Tried to fix it. Some podcast listeners tried to help me. I took my Garmin off so that it wouldn't get dirty because we flipped my bike over. And then that fell out of my pocket and I lost it. So I got a new shifter and I got a new Garmin. So I'm okay for the race. But I didn't have power meter that day. And then I rode again on Wednesday and I just felt horrible. And based on, I did about a 18-minute, like pretty strong effort. And I don't know if you came with power too, but I went kind of harder and then it just went down so fast.
Trickling down, even though you're trying just as hard, the power was trickling down.
So I estimated FTP in Reno, it's 330. Here, 275. And I did the math. That's a 83% drop at 10,000 feet. And then if you look at some studies, they're saying if you're acclimated, anywhere between an 86 to 83% drop in power. I've talked to some other people. They think by the time Saturday comes around, I'll feel better tomorrow. Alex, what's your experience been with that?
I've never spent a full, people have talked about like that 3-week period.
Yeah.
I've never spent a full 3-week period at somewhere this high. I live at 4,500 feet in Salt Lake City. And I can always tell, I came up today. I drove last night. I drove to Avon, and then I just drove up today. I didn't have the time to come any earlier. And I'm sort of doing the old thinking of if you can't come, a week or 10 days, then you come within 24 hours. And it's worked for me in the past.
Have you done this each of the 4 previous
Yeah,
times?
I've come last minute. And I've also done Breck Epic coming last minute, and it seems to work. That said, I've spent a lot of time over the past 20 years riding bikes, skiing, snowboarding up at high altitudes. So I feel like, and I just tell myself this because I don't have time to come early and acclimate, but I feel like hopefully I'm one of those people that doesn't have quite as adverse response as some. So I can kind of come up at the last minute and knock on wood, feel fine.
Yeah.
I'd like
Not fine, but feel okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to actually like fly in from Denver, drive in from Denver like the morning of and just do it then.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Have a chauffeur. You can sleep in the back.
It's called Jonathan.
Yeah, for me, I find I don't sleep as well up here. So it's a balance of, is it worth the sort of interruptions in sleep to try to acclimate to the altitude? And it's kind of it's tough to stay on the hydration up here too. So you're constantly struggling to get good sleep, get hydrated. So it's like if you can keep things normal and then come at the end, it works for me.
Yeah.
The other thing I've noticed about elevation, and I went on a ride with some podcast listeners, and so if you're at elevation, your anaerobic power doesn't change, right? Anaerobic meaning without air, without oxygen.
Makes sense, right?
Yep. And what would happen is every normally when you mountain bike and there's a little pitch, you just push a little harder, right? And you go right through it. These guys would do that, and I looked down at my power meter, and it would be like 400 watts. And we do that for maybe 10 seconds. It feels okay, and it feels just like it does in Reno. But then after like the next 10 seconds, it starts to become more aerobic, and people don't realize it gets aerobic really fast.
And those anaerobic pushes get really costly too, because you're not furnishing as much aerobic contribution as you normally would. Right. So you're going to blow through them even more quickly.
Yeah. And then we got out of gas so fast, and then you can't just get it back. And we did a climb, and a couple guys, they went like that, a little more sporadic in their power output, like high normalized, but low average. And man, after a little while, I could pass them doing less power. So what about, I know you're at the front of the race, so it's different and you got to be in the pack, but how do you pace? Do you try to be mindful about not going too deep?
Yeah, I do most in race pacing just by feel. And cause you sort of don't have the luxury of saying, oh, I don't want to push it up over X watts, because you're going to try to stay in the group or sort of get in where you can. And usually if you're getting dropped and not making the group, it's because you absolutely can't go any harder, at least in my experience.
Right.
Like rarely do I say like, oh, I should get dropped now and save it for later. In a race like this, where there's all that group riding in the middle, I'm going to do everything I can to make the group, hopefully, or make a group. But definitely, I try to just go like, okay, those times, like if I'm about to fall off the bike, I'm going to have to back it off. But otherwise, I try to go as deep as I can. But we have that sort of internal governor that tells us like, all right, this might be hard enough. And that's when you get dropped.
When it's worth it.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that there are portions of this course where it's definitely a benefit to be in a group, to be with the group.
Oh, for sure.
So this is a key thing, like the difference between he's racing something tomorrow, I'm doing a time trial. Yeah. That will have there's 2,000 people racing. There's so many people are going to be around me that the group's going to be everywhere. You know what I mean? Like there's not there's a specific group.
Yeah,
exactly.
You'd still benefit from being in a faster rolling group. You don't want to be the guy that's doing all the work, pulling up like 20 guys or whatever.
Here's a good point. Like my average power up the climb, I don't know, was 275 or something. But it was not, my normalized power was higher, or it was something like that. But I rode it way more spiky, and I probably would have got up that hill just as fast if I would have ridden the whole thing perfectly even. Actually faster. And I wouldn't have been, probably just as fast, but I wouldn't have been as gassed, and I would be in the same group at the end.
Yeah.
Where I think at the beginning, as I'm talking about the St. Kevin's climb,
Yep.
it's just so easy and people are going to get so excited to go hard at the very, very beginning.
Definitely goes hard up that.
Yeah.
The funny thing about this too, I think that with I've found that with higher end in a race like this and with higher, like the front end of the pack, the pacing is actually much more consistent many times than what you find at the end of the race. Things will, people will definitely try to, tactics and everything else, but you'll find much better, more consistent pacing. It's a hard pace that's unsustainable for us average Joes, but it's more consistent pacing than what you find with the average Joes, because
these average Joes here,
us,
the three of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Alex is an average.
On the thousands of folks that are racing out there tomorrow, it's I think that something that's commonly misunderstood is the fact that, and even like pros, you kind of like race in this one level, then with the amateurs, it's kind of different. Amateurs are very good at making sure they push hard on the pedals and they climb until they can't and they pop. And then they're very good at easing off and then not pushing hard thereafter. Whereas you'll find with a lot of the front groups, the pace is more consistent. It's hard, but it's more consistently hard. And that's something that with amateurs, you kind of have to watch out for, because if you get caught up with these groups and you're so set on staying with the group and they're surging too much, it's gonna cook you.
Yeah. This course is kind of like a time trial in that regard, as in you might want to ride the climbs, if you could, a little easier and the flats a little harder than, rather than saving it in the flats, because there's a lot of flats out there.
Yeah.
And sort of gradual and false flat. And that's, this race is famous for the climbs, but I think that after the climbs, the next thing is going to be all that flat pedaling.
My goal is sub 9.
Quite a bit.
And I'm estimating about 3 hours of flat pedaling.
Yeah,
like
it's
flattish. People don't realize that. And I actually brought a aero helmet and a skin suit.
Nice.
Just for that, those sections.
Good idea. And, we're going back to groups. We're talking about getting in a group. A lot of times it's the dynamics of the group. Like if you have a group that recognizes a strong rider and then they'll say, well, I'm going to park it on that guy. I'm not going to help. It's like whatever you can do to get your group rolling through and get a good group dynamic.
Some cohesion, yeah.
Yeah, good cohesion, because it's a bummer when you have a group that sort of has, he's going to pull us.
He's too strong.
Yeah. You don't want, so just try to just do the subtle, pull through and sort of
How long pulls do you think people should be taking?
Boy, that just depends. I mean, in a perfect world, if you had a big group, you're just going to roll through in like a pace line and just do your 20 seconds or whatever before the next guy comes through. I don't know, this could be interesting, at least at the front. There's a couple teams that have a few guys here, like Toe Peak Aragon has a few guys here. Are they going to have guys riding on the front? I don't know, trying
sacrificing themselves.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is team tactics is something you usually see at Leadville?
It wasn't until teams like Toe Peak Aragon came in with Jeremiah and Albin Licata, Jeremiah Bishop, Albin Licata, Christian Heineck, and guys were out there just team time trialing it and trying to break that sub 6.
2016, 17?
Yeah, I think so. 14, 15, 16, around there.
Let's get on to equipment really quick. Okay. I feel like the elevation part more or less is covered, right? Anything else? Yeah.
Well, just
is there something else you want?
I want to just say how low the power is going to be. Do you know how much power you would do over this race with the elevation change?
As far as an average for the whole race?
Yeah, normalized, yeah.
It'll be somewhere hopefully in the mid upper 200s, but not, it doesn't look good compared to sea level,
right.
For sure.
And what's your FTP?
Well, right now, I'm going to say for Salt Lake City, FTP somewhere around 320, 325 maybe.
And what's your weight?
Just under 140 right now.
So if you're in the high 200s, that's a really good power for the elevation.
The hope, yeah. And it might be less, but
that's really good.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking 330 is my FTP in Reno, and I think I'm going to be 200, 210.
Yeah.
Over 9 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could be off base there, but that's the hope.
Yeah.
That's why you're doing it.
Yeah, no.
It's 6:30 and I'm doing it 9 hours.
Yeah. And there's a lot to be said with how, like you said, there's so much time in the flats that you can come in with a great power to weight ratio, but really if you end up foolishly exploiting that power to weight ratio that you have, it's not going to help you.
We should try to push this up tonight.
Yeah.
Because I want people to listen
It's
to
going
it
up tonight.
and get in a group. And I'm going to be
work with
talking.
you.
Exactly. Please work with me. But I'd like to, like, really, it is. If we can all work together instead of just having like a horse
try to
work.
recognize the benefit in working as a group, not being those few who look back or sit back and observe that one of these guys is stronger than the rest and refusing to contribute your due.
Yeah. I'm going to start being vocal.
It's kind of, yeah.
Why not? Do it in a friendly manner and just try to encourage people.
I think that a point that you made, and I thought of this earlier, and I want to touch on it. Like, there's, in fact, we kind of see this sometimes. And in fact, somebody actually said it to Chad just earlier today. We see lots of folks in these races, and a lot of the time they see like Coach Chad, and they're like, "I'm gonna grab that wheel.
It's a big guy.
That's a good wheel to grab." You'll see this guy in this group that you'll think like, that's a fast rider. You'll see a gal that you're like, she's done a great time here. I'm just gonna sit on her wheel. That group sitting on that person's wheel is not going to be, and it could have more fast people in it, but if they're not working together, you could have a group of slower people that are working together and you make a whole lot more progress.
Yeah. Maybe think in terms of benefiting the group and not just benefiting yourself.
It will benefit you because of the time, right?
In the end.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It benefits everybody in the end.
Yeah.
The other thing, I don't know if this happens in the pros, but I'm worried that if I do get in a fast group, then if there gets to be any kind of incline, they're just going to jam it on there and we're all going to go so deep. Because that happens.
Too deep.
I've never been on a road ride with anyone where there's a hill and everyone doesn't jam it.
How long does that last in something like this? So over 9 hours, if you're 2 or 3 hours into it, recognizing that you've got 5 or 6 more hours to ride, do people still make those mistakes?
Yeah, they'll make it until they can't usually. Mountain bike races. It's so funny that if mountain bike races are just people just go hard from early, and so people burn a bunch of matches early, and then they're gonna have to settle in.
And that's not the smart way to do it at elevation, right?
No, but that's how it goes. I did the Crusher and the Tusher a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And that's you get more of a diverse group with a lot of road riders and road racers or cross racers. And I notice every year that one starts out much slower, whereas most every mountain bike race I've ever done, full gas. You know what I mean? So I was like, wow, this is great. We are pacing this right. Whereas the end gets faster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
as it should be.
That is the way every mountain bike race I've done. They start out fast and finish slower.
Yeah. We printed out, you shared a little, somebody made a little like a spreadsheet that basically said, if you are going to do an 8-hour time at Leadville or an 8:30 or a 9 or a 9:30, you should expect to get to these aid stations by these specific times, right? And it's looking at like the data, you see that people on the last section coming in, so you kind of like, you do some climbing coming out, you go down that power line descent, a lot of flat after that, or flat, I should say. And then
it doesn't feel flat, but it is when you look at the overall profile.
Yep. And then you climb way up into high elevation at Columbine, then you turn around and do it all back. So the last section does have undulation and climbing, and it's kind of like an uphill drag coming in.
Oh yeah. The last 25 miles is brutal.
Is just mildly up the whole time?
Yeah, well, it's really steep. So the last feed zone coming back, or the last official feed zone's at mile like 74, 75, and then you have a little flat road. And then you kick up this climb called Power Line, and it's super steep, and then it flattens out, but it keeps going up. And then you go down, and then you got to climb some more. It hits hard.
So it's far from over.
It's hard at the end. Yeah.
And if you've burned too many matches, and something that I want to get into really soon here is nutrition and hydration. If you haven't been wise with that, it's not only going to hurt you because it's the end of the race, but it's a hard end of the race. Yeah. So it's crazy when you look at that split sheet that we have that basically shows those things. It's going to be taped on your top tube. And if anybody wants one, just find us. We have a few extras. But there's a huge difference in that last section. There's a lot of time. It takes a long time. And I can't help but think that certainly a lot of that is because it's hard. But I think when you look at amateurs and the reason why it's such a big split with a lot of folks is, number one, we just talked about pacing, but fueling is tough up here on the hydration and nutrition side because it's cooler. It's not like a super hot, race at low elevation. So you might not drink as much because you might not feel like you're sweating quite as much, or you might not feel as hot, which is a bad mistake.
It's really dry, and you're going to be losing a lot through respiration, not just sweating. Yeah.
And then you also, with food, taking in food too, it's when you're in this long race like this, a lot of folks get caught up, they segment this one. And basically, if you're to segment Leadville up by what people say, every section of the way, like there's some action or something very interesting going on, right? And in the race, you have to make sure that you take those breaks and kind of step out of that and make sure that you feed. Let's talk about that really quick. What you guys are doing for hydration and nutrition. Nate, you've been eating a ton today.
Yeah.
A ton. Yeah.
That's the thing to do.
Alex,
Hey,
how do you?
Everyone gives me.
We're not saying it's a wrong thing to do. We're saying it's horrible.
impressive.
It's horrible to watch.
You can stomach it. You can stomach it, and it doesn't bother you tomorrow. Then you're good to go.
I'm not sure you can stomach
Push
yourself.
the upper limit. That's my philosophy.
Yeah. So Alex? What do you do?
Yeah, and
I eat a lot.
how many days before does it start for you?
Well, I'm like the skinny guy who always eats a lot and never gains any weight. I have to up it even more in the 3 days prior. And it also depends. Like, this is a pretty early start time, right? So it's a 6:30 a.m. start. So I'm gonna start it maybe on like Wednesday. I'm gonna just start to up my carbohydrate intake, up my hydration. Not just water too, and I mean hydration. Like, I'll drink like that Scratch Wellness, or I think it's Wellness now. It used to be Rescue. Drink a bottle of that a day at least. And just add extra carbs for those days. It's not like sometimes if we have a 2:00 cross country on a Saturday afternoon, you can get away with Thursday night, Friday, but this one starting at 6:30 on Saturday, you can't just do a Friday carb load. And, and it works for me. I don't know. I just, whatever works for anyone. I've always thought that nutrition's highly personal, but that's what works for me.
If you're racing at a high output, that's going to take a lot of carbohydrate.
It takes a ton of energy to ride to push, because the goal is to push as close to 300 watts up pretty much everything all day as I can. So to do that, it's just a steady grind that burns a ton of kilojoules. So you got to start topped up, well fueled, and then
stay there.
Take it in the whole time during the race.
So what are you going to do during the race?
A variety of things. I like to really mix it up. So I have, for drink, I have Carbo Rocket 333. So that's in a 24-ounce bottle. It'll be 333 calories, 80 grams of carbs. So pretty concentrated. Usually I have 2 bottles on my bike at all times, one of that and one of water. And then I'll do Stinger Chews. So a couple bags of those. Enduro Bites bars. It's a fig-based energy bar that's super easy to stomach. And you can put them in your jersey pocket, and it's not like melty or anything like that. Those go down really easily, so I'll eat those.
Do you just eat those to taste, or do you have a specific, I'm going to eat one package and...
It depends on the race a lot of times how much solid food I can stomach, but I like to have a little more than I think I might need, and then end with 1 or 2 in my pocket, if anything.
Gotcha.
For a marathon race like this, do you find yourself eating more solids than you would, for example, during like a higher intensity, shorter race?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Like even like 3 hours and under, I can do on like with 333 drink, do some Carbo Rocket gels and the blocks. Across country, I could do it on drink, gel, or blocks, like 90-minute cross country. And then this one, definitely you got to have solids. And I'll have some gels out there too. I'll have Science and Sport gels, and then maybe like a salted caramel goo or something. And
when you get to the solids, what are those?
That's the Enduro Bites, and then maybe a Stinger waffle.
Okay.
And probably some Oreos and one of my Musette bags.
Nice.
Do you know how many calories an hour or carbs an hour you're shooting for?
I shoot for a minimum of 200 an hour for this kind of thing. So if I'll just basically, I'll say, okay, 6.5 hours, that's going to be at least, 1,300 calories, but I'm going to shoot for, I'd be better to do more. It'd be better to do 300 an hour if I can stomach it that day.
Yeah.
So, I don't think in terms of grams of carbs, because all the sports nutrition that we're talking about is, for me, it all has a high carbohydrate content. So if I just think the calories, I know the carbs are coming with it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That's a simplified way of taking it. Yeah. Smart.
I just divide the time by the 200 or 300 an hour and shoot for that.
What do you said you take in a lot of carbs in terms of the food beforehand, but is there a specific food that you usually like rely on, like for days before or the morning of? Does it change morning of or day of?
Yeah, I just try to mix it up. I try to get a variety. I like rice, sweet potatoes, pasta, quinoa, oats, all that stuff, muesli. I try to mix it up and not just do one thing.
Yeah. Is there anything you stay away from on the carb side beforehand, or any food that you stay away from in general?
Yeah, like probably most people, high fiber doesn't sit well in those days before a race. So I don't do a lot of raw greens, raw vegetables, or anything like that. I don't do a lot of like high fiber foods. I'll do, white rice, sweet potatoes, pasta, quinoa, muesli, lots of bananas, apples, stuff like that. You know, but I get in lots of avocado, eggs, things like that, proteins to try to balance everything
The
out.
entire time.
Yeah.
Lean into it. And Nate, you have been eating a ton. Chad and I have been laughing. You're walking slow upstairs.
Just
impressive.
carbohydrate. Just carbohydrate though.
Well, no, I'm trying to go 80% carbs.
Okay. And what's the other composition?
Vegetables.
Just fat and no vegetables or a lot of my carbs and veggies. The rest is just fat and protein. It just happens because even brown rice, like I don't know if that
Protein
is
content.
80% carbs.
Right.
So you eat anything else, like a little bit of olive oil, and the ratio gets messed up. And I can't eat enough.
So what have you eaten today, I guess, to give people an idea?
Today we haven't been doing as good a job. Yesterday I did a great job.
Then let's talk about yesterday.
Okay. I still have some time left today to pack it in. But so I'm shooting for 8 to 10 grams of carbs per kilogram body weight. So
How much do you weigh?
It's a lot.
86K right now. I gained a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's all muscle, but it's not.
It's all muscle.
Hopefully it is.
Exactly right. Pedal pushing muscle.
So
Talking like 900 grams of carbohydrate.
yesterday I had
daily.
800 grams of carbohydrate.
Well done.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Well done. Pete.
I've never counted. I don't have the.
I have a food scale right there. I've done this earlier this year, and I had a great race. It was a 100-mile gravel race, and I felt really good.
You were smiling across the line, high-fiving people.
Yeah, I didn't-
and everyone else that was finishing around you looked like they were half dead.
I almost feel like I didn't push hard enough.
Yeah.
Like I paced it too well. The other thing that happens, and I don't know if you get this too, that when I do carb load, like my legs feel physically bigger. Like I like flex them and they feel like they have a pump. Sometimes
just
you
gone to
flex
the
your
gym.
legs and they're sore and they feel weak.
Yeah.
But I flex them and they're not sore and they just feel big. Does that happen to you?
Yeah, I mean, you'd know you're ready to go if you like get on the bike and you're like, oh,
puppy.
legs look bigger today. You know?
Yeah, right?
Sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, stuff happens.
Yeah.
So today I'm trying to get the same 800. And this morning I had like a breakfast of steel cut oatmeal, non-fat milk, and raisins, and that was 200 grams. And then the only other thing we've had is
It was not a normal bowl of oatmeal.
Oh no, it's like a casserole dish.
so it's
A
six.
normal bowl of oatmeal might be like 50, 60 grams.
Yeah.
Well, so one serving is 26 grams, I think, of carbs, and this is 6 servings.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah. So I think it was 6.5 cups of water to make that. So it's a lot, and then it's heavy.
And you don't take much time to get through it either.
Got work to do, Chad.
it's impressive.
It's its own event.
It's respectable.
And then I'm actually
know what to
eating
make of
pretty much the exact same stuff Alex is.
Yeah.
The one of the different stuff I do fiber, because I find if I eat a lot of fiber, I'm just very regular. And race morning, everything comes out. But then the morning of the race, I'm going to do Bob's Red Meal. It's pretty much their organic like malto meal, which is no fiber. And I find when I eat that stuff, it absorbs so quickly because if I have that for like lunch and I have a snack of like 2 servings of that, I'm hungry like 60 minutes
super
later.
quickly.
Yeah, it just comes in. So I'm going to do that. It's hard. It's an early start, 2 to 3 hours before. And then the other thing I do is whole wheat spaghetti and put pasta sauce on it. That's low fat because it just changes it because you eat so much sweet stuff and having the kind of a salty spaghetti tastes really nice.
So you, I guess, recapping on that with fiber, you don't necessarily stay away from fiber until day of, right?
Yeah.
You're not
'Cause
going high fiber. You're just not avoiding
it's pretty
it.
high fiber.
Yeah?
Like because you're eating
Intentionally so,
oatmeal.
or just because that's what it is?
No, I'm doing brown rice and stuff. I don't know if this is true. This is just how I think of it. But I think of things.
Disclaimer.
Yeah. I think of things that carb load better when they have a longer like timed release with fiber than getting like drinking like Coca-Cola. And the reason why I think that is because one study I read where rice loaded better than bread. And they thought because bread had more surface area and got digested faster than rice did.
Yeah.
I don't. So I'm extrapolating that out to maybe fiber will
I'm
help.
sure there's something to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The absorption.
I'm
rate.
probably right.
Sure.
It's been known to happen.
So let's talk. We talked a little bit about on the bike nutrition.
Can I say my on the bike?
Yeah, let's do that. And then we're going to get through into the feeding strategies,
Oh, yeah.
the homework for Chad and I.
So I'm also going, I'd like to do everything to the extremes, Alex.
Right.
Okay. So I'm doing 400 an hour grams of carbs or maybe 500.
Holy.
Because I've done 400 at just race.
Not calories. You're talking grams of carbs.
Yeah, but I'm eating, but the amount of I'm eating barely any protein and zero fat.
Can we just jump in really quick? You've done something similar to this, as far as perhaps not up to 500, but you've in a race eaten this many grams.
No,
of carbs
we're not
before?
talking about grams.
It's got to be
It
calories.
has to be calories.
Calories, sorry, calories.
I'm
Yes.
like,
Okay.
that would be amazing.
All right, back on track.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
So going
try
back
that.
to this though, you've
Someone should
verified
try.
you've verified this strategy, right?
Yeah, so I've done it at Carson. No, not Carson.
Lost and Found.
Not Lost and Found. Tahoe Trail 100. We just did, and I think I ate a little more than a 400, and I was fine.
Calories.
And at Lost and Found, I lost track, but I ate a ton, and I felt great then too. So I'm going to try to overdo
If you can do it, then I mean, if you can stomach it and you're fine, then push the upper limit.
That's my
what I
one
found.
raw innate talent is to eat lots of food.
It's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah,
you
not
can eat a lot.
technical skills or VO2 max, just eating.
What
Well,
do you-
this course is made for that too.
Yeah, no,
There's really very few places you can't eat or drink. So
you say that. I mean, people talk about triathlons and Ironman being like an eating contest because if you can't eat enough by the end of the race, you're gonna be depleted.
Yeah.
You can't go, especially in Ironman, you can't go 10 hours and try to do 100 calories an hour.
It's the same
and be
thing
okay.
here. Any mistakes you make early on are going to compound in those closing hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So that's what I'm gonna do.
And since you can eat, like you said, it's not like you're charging through gnarly rock gardens. It's, this weekend, Mont Saint Anne, the World Cup's happening. That's a very different scenario, right? This is a spot where you can take in as much food. How are you getting those calories though? Like what things are you eating?
Yeah. So I'm doing. I'm going to start with the Martan 360 in a hydration pack. I'm going to do 2 of those for 2 hours,
Okay.
and then I'm going to do SIS gels.
same here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I've done the math on this, and I do the gels with Honey Stinger Chews and Scratch, and I get the right ratio. It's like a 70-30 ratio between glucose and fructose, so my body can absorb it as fast as possible because fructose digests or gets absorbed on a different path than glucose does.
70-30, not 60-40. I've read 60-40.
Is it 60-40 or 70-30? Well, I'm doing 70-30, so that's what I'm going to do.
Best of luck, buddy.
No, but when you're doing it too, you don't match it exactly.
Yeah.
Just-
Try
It's
to get
kind
as
of
close
a-
as you can.
Yeah, no,
It's kind of a close thing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mix it up.
In body
Yeah,
weight,
exactly.
yeah,
Are you changing?
Any solid
nice.
food? Sorry.
No solid food. I heard from somebody at a big nutrition company that for racing, solid food doesn't digest as well as like gels are the best, then chews, then solid
So, yeah.
food.
intensity.
As long as you
dependent,
can,
but
you can avoid that sort of like gut nausea, like gut rot at the end.
Yeah.
Because I find if I don't have some base of solids early
Yeah.
to mid race, then I get a little bit nauseous at the end. But
Alex-
that's all personal.
Alex, I'm world class.
Yeah, okay,
So-
I like it.
world-class eater.
eating.
I'm at eating, so I might as well get the rocket fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean
Totally.
that's a good point though. And two, if things go like in a race this long, things can go bad and then get good again. And if things go bad, what I'm going to do is turn to the aid stations where they have solid food, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the fat in there and kind of the different taste might settle my stomach.
Whole food for a little while, or solid food, I should say.
Yeah, and pretzels and like a different
Yeah,
non-sweet.
or give these
Yeah.
guys an oh crap bag that has gloves, a
That's
sandwich.
fantastic
Like,
idea.
no, they don't have to hand it to you, but they have it behind
Just in
them.
case.
Yeah, no,
Say,
you-
hey, give me that oh crap bag because
I'm in a bad place.
like I need that pile of cookies right now or
Fill
whatever.
it with guilty pleasures, Nate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what Candelario described to us when we did.
Yeah,
on
I don't
Ikea.
plan on getting the oh crap.
Nobody
You
plans
don't
that.
plan it, but then it starts snowing coming down Columbine, and your hands is like some warm
The
gloves.
hail that hit us today.
I want a Wendy's double stack.
Okay. We'll keep
No
it warm.
cheese.
We'll keep it warm
Yeah.
for you the whole time. Yeah.
I do have all the we'll probably get to that, but the other stuff for you guys, but
Yeah.
we'll
get
the,
to that.
The aid station food actually sounds good to me.
Yeah.
The pretzels and peanut butter and jelly.
It's a good spread.
Yeah.
One thing I just want to recap because Chad said it kind of, and it was amongst all of us saying other things. But when you said that solid foods aren't good for racing, what you were really getting at was intensity dependent. Like, as intensity increases, solid foods can be tougher to digest. So when intensity is lower, then it would be easier to digest. So that's what you were getting at with that. It wasn't that like if you're a bike racer, you should never have solids. I just want to make that clear.
I think what I was under the impression is that it always digests faster, and then to have the more liquid stuff than solid food.
Yeah, which could be a bad thing depending. If the intensity's not high enough and you're
Yeah, you don't
pumping-
need it.
Yeah.
And basically all that blood goes to your gut and not to the muscles where it needs to be going. Bad things happen, but you've struck a better balance. So
Yep. Yeah.
We'll see.
It's all personal too. I
Yeah.
mean, some people like in a 3-hour race, I've still put down some solids during an Epic Rides race.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a gripe. Okay.
Okay.
Everyone says nothing new on race day.
Yeah.
And my thinking is this.
Everything new.
Try it all out.
No, well, so race day, everything is always different. Like nothing is the same on race day as in training. Your nerves, everything.
Meaning
so
that the circumstances change?
the intensity, what's available, your nerves, your night before, how you do this, your taper, everything is different. So what I think people should do is they should have races that they don't care about much, where they experiment. They go, this race, I am going to try something new.
They're called training races. That's exactly why we have training races.
No, but everyone always says nothing new on race day. So in training, they go, I can't eat 400 calories.
Maybe that should be qualified with a high priority race day, because training races are for exactly what you're describing right now.
That's why we're talking about this.
Okay.
Because people don't, they don't, even in a training race, people will swear that nothing new on race day.
That's your
and
point.
based on what they did on a ride that they did, which is a total different circumstance than race day, even if it was a long ride, they say those nutrition facts then apply to race day. And it's different, right? Like even just your nerves.
There are no hard, fast rules. We know that.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, if you go on the internet, there are hard and fast rules. There's a whole
well,
book.
there are
It's called The Rules.
simple-minded people who make up hard, fast rules. They're not out there.
Indeed. Yeah. Anything else to add on nutrition?
How about caffeine?
Yeah.
Oh,
Any caffeine out there?
oh yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you, and then we'll talk about the extreme example.
No, so I mean, caffeine's. I'm a coffee drinker, I love caffeine, and it's something I discovered in races a little bit late in my career. But I do bring out a good amount of caffeine, and it started with a 5-hour energy near the end of a cross country, half hour to go, and I would look at my lap splits. You know, like some of the World Cups, you can get the lap splits, and I'm like, oh, those were the 5-hour laps. Those are good times. Like, okay, so that
Really?
stuff works, you know? And so, and I always was a coffee, you know, before, but like, it's hard to drink coffee right before the start or out there.
Yeah.
So I started bringing a 5-hour in a flask during some races. And I found with the 5-hour energy, it lights me up a lot right away because I'm a fast responder to caffeine. So I feel a good boost, and then it's a pretty good crash.
Yeah.
But what I found is those Science and Sport gels, they have the berry flavor has 75 milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah.
So for something like this, if I had 3 of them, that's 225 milligrams.
Pretty good
That's
jolt.
over 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight for the whole race. You know, I'll have a coffee before in the morning, and then I'll start hitting those, and I'll try to space them out, and definitely save 2 of them for the last, 3 hours, and sort of as the turbo boost.
Awesome. Do you trim your caffeine intake prior to or leading into the event?
Yeah, I won't go, like a lot of times I'll have a coffee in the morning and then have another one mid-morning. And I'll try to just for the couple days before, just have one in the morning. I don't go like Stephen Hyde, for example, I know he'll do like decaf for a week, and then he'll go and drink like a few Red Bulls
So
and
he's
just
super sensitive.
Zing,
Yeah.
whereas I think I would probably be too hyped up.
Yeah.
So it's good to keep things, and that kind of goes with diet too. Like keep it as close to your normal as possible, but then maybe tweak just a little bit close to the race. So yeah, I didn't have a second coffee today.
Yeah.
So in hopes that
Very
maybe
wise.
I'll feel
Nice.
the caffeinated gel a little more. What do you do out there?
I just
Yeah.
do a lot.
Just slam caffeine.
Yeah. What do you, Red
So
Bull?
I'll
or-
start with the EFS pre-race.
Okay. That has like
Endurance
100
first.
milligrams, right?
Yeah, I think I do about
For 3
150
capsule. Okay.
with the amount.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go a little bit. I usually would start with just straight like no dose caffeine pills, which are 200 milligrams each. And by the way, I find that those get you going way more than a 200 milligram like coffee or something.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I'm changing my strategy on this one because it's such a long race. Because if I do a high dose at the beginning, I'll feel really bad around 7 hours, 6 hours.
Well, you're going to burn a lot more sugar. It seems like that's my impression when I have a lot of caffeine. I'm like, well, I'm getting bonky. I got to just keep
you
just
gotta
down in the
keep
gels and
going,
the chews.
That's what I'm going to be.
Yeah, what you're doing.
That's not
anyway.
a problem.
And it might be too because you can ride at a higher intensity with caffeine. Your
Yeah.
RP is
Yeah, I
lower,
think
and
that's
you
what it is.
probably
You're thusly
actually
burning
are.
more.
Yeah, and when you get higher, you're burning more sugar, more glycogen.
Yeah, stacks up.
So I'm going to do just like you. I have those SAS gels,
Those
and
are
I
good.
have the Cola Honey Stinger chews.
Okay.
And then I think at the base of Columbine, I'm probably going to down 600 to 800 milligrams
No way.
Yes, that's real.
Props. I'm impressed.
But on a day-to-day
Of the tablets.
basis,
So-
what is your caffeine intake?
I don't know.
It's a ton.
It's
I mean,
a lot.
It's not that much actually, because I've been tapering it down.
like 300-400 milligrams. Yeah,
No,
see, this
maybe a
is-
little less. No, I'm not sure. I was probably less.
But
But
it's
there's a
higher
book
than
out
most people.
that's about caffeine in sport. I forgot the exact title, but I read it. And there's all these various studies. And one thing they keep arriving back at like a 3 milligrams per kilogram
Per
body
kg,
weight
yeah.
as like a sort of a sweet spot, whereas they used to pump it up to like 9 milligrams
Wow.
per kilogram for some studies. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't seem to give much further benefit.
Past 3, yeah.
But
So
if
I've
it does
read-
for you, then do it.
the 3 is the minimum,
Yeah.
and the max benefit is around 10.
Jeez.
And that's where I'm going to 800. I'm going to maybe 11
So
with the
that's
other
at
stuff.
the base of Columbine.
Yeah, because that's about halfway through the race. So once
not time wise.
not at the base. Yeah, at the top is about halfway time wise.
Yeah,
So by the
exactly.
time that it gets into me, it takes like 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll be on my way up. Probably the most part where I won't need it to at the high elevation, and then I'll
How
be.
are you managing the drop off? The potential drop off.
There won't be a drop off until.
Or when your heart explodes. How do you deal with that?
So I've done this before, and I don't recommend this for people. Try. Like,
Do you sleep for a week after?
the night of, I will sleep, but it will be disrupted. But after every race, it's disrupted
Yeah,
sleep.
me
I'll
too.
feel really bad after the race.
Yeah.
Really, really bad. And then the races where I don't do a lot of caffeine, I don't feel so bad.
But
But
you-
you get a huge benefit.
Yeah, you're gonna feel bad. I mean,
as long as you don't
you're
stop.
not gonna feel good after this one anyway.
But if you take that much caffeine and you're pedaling,
Yeah.
it almost feels like it's like you got to do something. But as soon as you get off the bike and you stop, you can't sit. I feel like I'm
You might
literally
as well,
am a
you
drug
should
addict.
just drive home tomorrow. You'll be-
Why not?
It's like end up in Reno 24 hours later.
Yeah, exactly.
So I might, depending on how I feel, I might do less than 800. I might go 200 or 400, then 400, maybe a power line.
Are those going to be with the pills, or are they going to be the little Science and Sport little cola things?
No, so I
No,
tried
if
this
he's going to get 400 milligrams, he's going to have to.
Science and Sport colas. I do like those, but for like one before like a cross country race or something.
Yeah.
I won't do this for anything that isn't an extreme event.
Yeah. This is and we should cover, like, this is your A event.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So I went to the gas station, and I normally need to go to the gas station because if the pills are older, they'll have a time delay. And I did this for the 40K TT as I took caffeine. It didn't kick in until after the race because they were like a year and a half old, and I took it right before.
These excuses are going to keep on coming just for a long time.
No, I didn't even finish it. The bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
probably
anyway,
the caffeine.
I go to the gas station and I get them in a foil pack.
Okay.
Because then you can kind of cut it and like you have 4 little pieces of foil. And when you're racing, everything gets sweaty in your pockets and stuff.
Yeah.
But it will keep the pills intact. And then I can just, pop the foil into my mouth.
Yeah. Okay. Are you going to take in hopefully not, any more caffeine after that?
Well, just based in the food, yeah.
And just from the gels or from the little.
I don't count that caffeine.
Doesn't count.
It's negligible.
And then probably a few cocaine nips. But I mean, I am bigger than most people. And
Yes.
I've done this before.
Yeah.
This is the limit.
It's a point I wanted to shine a light on. So you just covered it.
I
This
first
is not
did it-
new territory for you.
At Iserman, and when I did the 112 bike leg, hard bike leg, and I started about halfway through, and your legs get tired in a race.
Yeah.
The tiredness went away,
You just
but
kept going.
I was able to go deeper in that race, and I've gone deeper.
Fatigue is in the
any
brain, man.
race
So
before.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what this book touches on, that there's no actual like muscular benefit. Caffeine doesn't give you any energy,
Right.
but it dulls these adenosine receptors in your brain so you don't feel the fatigue.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was like, it's fascinating.
So I should actually.
Again, it all goes back to the head.
I might wait. It brings up a good point. I might wait until later in the race when I'm more fatigued, or maybe before power line on the way back, like mile 70 or 80. When
Because you don't want to get too jazzed up early and forget to eat and drink.
I won't. I
Also,
don't-
a good.
that does not happen.
His
That
eating
would happen to me.
strategy-
I would be like, I don't
Yeah.
need to eat. I'm feeling great.
yeah, exactly.
No, his eating strategy is really well mapped out.
Good.
I'm a triathlete.
Though-
So it's like, it's like 20 minutes in, got to do this. And I'm just waiting for the next,
yeah.
it's like 3 minutes. Should I do it now or wait?
There's something to add on this too, and I would think of like when you want to use that, because I could see, it's proven that it lowers perception RPE, right? Caffeine lowers your perceived exertion that you have. And if you put yourself basically at like the longest climb right there at the bottom, and your RPE kind of, it drops, you end up pushing a little harder than you might, going up a climb like that might not be the best time to take it in, versus if you're coming back from that whole thing and going through the flats, maybe that's
Yeah.
a better time.
And
what I'm getting at is like less opportunity to really go deeper than you should.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
if it's the last 25 miles, I should be going as deep as I can because I don't have to save it for later.
He'll be happy and chipper, and everyone else will be upset in the last section.
Yeah. Hey, everyone.
You'll be ripping right through. Can we cover cold weather gear and tools
and equipment too? We haven't
spares?
talked about bikes at all.
We're going to get into that.
Cool.
Cold weather gear first. It's going to be really cold. Like you were like shivering even down in Leadville midday today, but it's so high that it doesn't really get too. The air temperature isn't that hot. It feels hot, strangely, because you're, I think, maybe so high elevation. But how are you handling that in the morning when you're starting and it's 40 degrees?
Or in the 30s.
Or in the 30s.
Yeah, it says 39, 40 or something.
Yeah.
Right at 6.
What do you do? Do you have layers and then drop those layers at a certain point?
Yeah. The first year I did it, it was raining.
Ugh.
And that was actually pretty miserable. and Lance did it that year, and I remember we were going down this paved downhill by Turquoise Lake, and Lance turned to me. He's like, "You cold, buddy?" And I was like, "I'm freezing." And then he goes, "It's going to be real cold where we're going." I was like, "Oh." And I'd never ridden the course. I was like, "Oh." And so luckily the sun came out, and it was all fine after that. And then I just shed my stuff. But that was a cold year. So tomorrow it's not supposed to rain.
You're a lean racer too, and you're visibly lean too. So I'm sure that he was like looking at that and being like, "I'm gonna get in this dude's head right now."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's exactly what that was.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I definitely do run cold. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Vermont. I maybe froze too many times as a kid, so I get cold. So I'm gonna start. I'm not gonna wear any headgear, but I do have an aero cover for my helmet, which keeps me a little bit warmer. And then I'm going to wear a vest and some arm warmers to start. And the vest is a vest that I don't really care about. I'll chuck it. And if I don't get it back, whatever. And the arm warmer, same thing. I won't wear anything on my legs just because that's too much of a pain to take off. I won't put anything on my head that I have to take my helmet to take off. Because when the race heats up, like you said, as soon as that sun comes out and you start climbing, hot. So
it feels hot even at that point when you're going up the climbs, right?
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Oh, it's just that first downhill. So it's basically, 10, 15 minutes until you can start warming up. So just going to be a little chilly.
Yeah, so to give context to everyone, you start on a downhill in high 30s, 40s, going up to 40 miles per hour?
They have a 30s? Car that's supposed to keep it neutral, but the car always... Oh, the bikes are close, and then it punches it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, maybe you're going 20-ish, 25.
And then you get a flat section for like 2 minutes, and then you're climbing like 20, 30%, so you're warm then. But that's evil to start the race.
It's cold hands. You'll try to shake them out once you get going, just get them warm after that first downhill. But you'll freeze and then get warm.
Yeah.
So basically you stand in the corral for however long, get cold.
Yep.
Then you have to roll out in a cold stretch and endure 10, 15 minutes of that. So Nate is going to he's going to bundle up for the corral.
Have clothes in the corral, and you got support, which is great to give them to these guys.
We're going to take them. What are you going to wear in the corral? What's the plan?
I just have the warmest black diamond jacket and some like sweatpants.
Yeah.
And then I have hand warmers, and I'm going to have winter gloves kind of over my racing gloves.
Yeah.
And then once it starts, I'm throwing it all to you.
Yeah.
And I'm just going with what I'm going to be wearing all day. I thought about Embro cream, but because...
No, the sun will heat that up too much. Probably.
Yeah, and today is a colder day. The other 2 days that I rode, it got so hot on the climbs, like amazingly hot.
Yeah.
And Saturday's supposed to be hotter than those 2 days I rode. Yeah. So I'm just going to kind of deal with it for... a few minutes. And I love my arm warmers and I love my vest, so I don't want to throw it away.
And potentially, how long are you going to be standing in your corral after the gun goes off? When will you start moving? Any guesses?
It can take some time
back there.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not sure.
That's where I'm headed. We're going to get to that.
Yeah, because
because you have to. I mean, you can ditch your clothes. So the gun fires. Say you're there for 2 or 3 minutes. That's a lot of time for you to casually strip off your clothes and get them to us. He's going to line up right in the front. Gun goes off. He's got to go right then and there. And for that reason, you don't wear anything additional other than what you just described, what you're going to ride with for a while.
Yeah. I probably won't warm up much. I'll spin around for a few minutes, and I'll probably have leg warmers on and a jacket for that. Yeah. And then right up until a few minutes before, then I'll ditch that stuff and then just have the warmers and the vest.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I guess going on are you going to bring anything else like for rain or anything else? It's not forecasted to rain, but do you have, like you talked about the oh crap bag? What do you carry in that sort of bag?
Maybe just some warm gloves, rain jacket, and some extra food. Just that's the stuff that you know, just get your hands back if it did all of a sudden the weather turned south and started
like guilty
hailing.
pleasure food, stuff that you really want to eat.
Yeah, just like something like, okay, I need a sandwich out here, like maybe a peanut butter sandwich, just that maybe I wouldn't hopefully need, but boy, if I have a catastrophic bonk, that might bring me back.
Yeah. And then do you have anything? I know that you wanted us to get rubber gloves.
So I'm doing a drop bag at the top of Columbine, which that's at 12.6, and the descent could be very cold, with a wind jacket and some like windproof gloves for the descent in case it's really, really cold up there. And then I'm putting in also like neoprene like surgical gloves in my little like SWAT bag, because I can just stuff that in there. And if for some reason, sometime I get so cold, I can put those over my gloves and warm up my hands.
Yeah.
I probably won't need those, but it's like no weight and no space. So why not?
Might as well. Let's talk about equipment then.
Okay.
Or actually tools and spares first, forgive me. How are you carrying, or what sort of spares do you carry? Do you carry a tube? Do you carry 2 tubes? And then what do you carry to fix those flats and anything else?
Well, for this one, I will carry 1 tube on my bike.
Yeah.
I'll have a tube with 2 CO2s and a tire plug.
Yeah.
And so first line of defense is the plug with the CO2. If that fails, then in my seat, that would be the tire plug taped to my handlebars, CO2 in my pocket with a head. And then in my saddle bag would be a tube and another CO2. And that's, okay, oops, now I got to do this. And then if that fails or something, there aren't spare wheels allowed in this race. So in that crap bag, I guess that's the other thing that would be in there, would be another tube and a little pump.
Got it.
Just in case.
Yeah.
And I'd have the multi-tool in my pocket. I have a multi-tool with most basic Allens and Torx wrench, and then a quick link taped to it.
Nice.
And there's a chain tool on that multi-tool. This is one where you don't want to be stranded out there. If you broke a chain, you want to be able to fix it and finish.
Yeah.
For me.
This another tip along these lines, your previous teammate Keegan Swenson, a good friend of the podcast, he has mentioned that he carries a 27.5 tube instead of a 29.
I do
stretch it out.
I do a cyclocross light tube, like a 700 by 35 tube.
Yeah, because it'll fill up the volume to kind of get you through, but it's lighter.
It's lighter and smaller, yeah.
Yeah, it's easier to carry.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Should have told me this before we came here.
We covered it on the podcast.
Was I listening?
Cross tube's much smaller and it works really well.
Yeah.
We even have a lot of those too.
I know. Nate, how are you carrying your spares? I saw that you have your tire plugs taped to your bars too.
Yeah. So
good move.
I've got 2 tire plugs taped to my bars, and then
inside the window, he's
with
looking
the
at it.
electrical tape, and then I also have the Dynaplug. Have you seen that? So it's this.
That's the thing that has the little air inflator too.
Yeah, it's
Puncture device.
I don't have one of those. It's pretty cool.
The plug is a little bit bigger than the other like bacon strips you can get.
Yeah.
And I'm going to thread on the CO2 ahead of time. In my skin suit, I actually have like it's the no pins clear pockets. So I kind of have 2 layers of pockets.
Yeah.
So in the clear pocket, where my nutrition is not going to be, I'm going to have the threaded Dynaplug. So I can reach in there and plug it, and at the same time fill it up with CO2 if I need to.
Yeah.
And then also have a CO2 in my SWAT box, which has a tube, multi-tool, and another CO2. And this time I brought the air chuck, because last time race I didn't bring the air chuck.
Yeah.
Got to bring the head.
I brought you a spare one just in case that happened again.
Good.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is my bike has a chain link in it and a chain breaker in the head tube.
Yeah, the top cap.
Top cap.
Cool.
Yep, you have a storage there. Let's talk about tools. Are you carrying a multi-tool?
Multi-tool, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fabric multi-tool, pretty small, pretty light.
Those are nice ones.
Yeah. I keep it in my pocket because just that odd chance that, even though I do a bolt check the night before the race, like, whoa, what if my clamp was coming loose and it was in my seat bag?
Yeah.
You want to be able to take it out and do anything that you can reach while rolling. Peter, I think Peter Sagan in one of the races this spring was like tightening his stem while he was rolling along there.
Watch that.
Yeah.
But you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe like you have a weird thing and your seat slips and who knows, better to have it in your pocket.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I like that one.
Yeah, that is.
2 bottle cages on both of your bikes.
Yep.
Are you going to carry a bottle in your jersey at all? Are you ever going to carry 3 bottles at one point?
Not in this one. There's so many aid stations that it's fine. I think to just run 2.
And you're pretty fast. So the time between aid stations is a lot less.
Too long.
Yeah. You are considering a third bottle or no, going up Columbine?
Considering going up Columbine.
Yeah.
So the time between the first two aid stations for me is about 2 hours. That's why I have the hydration pack, because I like to do like a bottle an hour, small bottle, or 2 small bottles an hour.
Yeah.
Going up Columbine, that's going to be probably 90 minutes for me, and probably an hour for you.
That'd be the hope, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah. So right there, 2 bottles for him would be perfect, but maybe me 3 bottles for that one.
I'll probably take 2 bottles at the pipeline feeds about 26 miles in. I'll probably take 2 bottles there, and then only 1 bottle at Columbine, because you're going to be climbing for an hour. So I just know I won't be able to drink as much, and I don't want a full bottle just to sit there.
Yeah,
sure.
For that whole climb. And then maybe I would grab, if I was out, at the top, you can still just nuke it down the hill and then get 2 more bottles at the bottom.
So would you at the top of that climb, because you have to descend for so long, would you try to get an extra water and nutrition, knowing you're not going to be able to eat or drink for the next? I don't know.
I would definitely stuff something in your cheek to sort of chew on the way down if you can, and maybe take a sip of water.
How long does it take you to go down that descent?
I'm trying to remember if it's 12, 14 minutes or something.
That's
like
crazy.
that. I can't. I'm just going on memory. I haven't looked at the splits, but it's something like that.
I think it changes a bit for those further in the pack too, because
It's wide open for you.
You still have people climbing up, but they're kind of like the first leaders coming through. And then when you get further back into the pack, and people become more delirious going up that climb, and they're swerving a little more. Is that worry you at all? The danger though on descending fast next to people that are climbing on a 2-track like that?
Yeah, for sure. It's just heads up the whole time, looking for someone that might be not paying. It's just like riding on the road or whatever, looking for cars that you assume they're going to do something that you're not expecting.
Yeah.
So just heads up. If you see someone that looks like they're swerving, they might come into your lane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a collision here in the 4 times I've done it. So knock on wood, that stays the same.
So to give people context, when you go, it's kind of like a single road that gets pretty tight going up Columbine. And then so the leaders are coming down the same road, and it's a mix of people trying to ride it. And some of them are actually paperboying.
Yeah.
And they go back and forth, and they have to stop because they're going to get killed.
Yep.
And then other people just start pushing their bikes. And when they're pushing their bikes, they kind of have the bike in front of them and their heads down.
Yeah.
And it's easy to not see the people coming down.
So there's no separate lane for the return riders. We're talking
No, they say
everyone on
keep
the
right,
same
but
thing.
it's
Yeah, kind of left the Wild West. Let's get into your bikes really quick.
Okay.
So you're riding your Specialized Epic, right, Nate? Any changes that you've made to it specifically for this race?
That cork was reading low. The first one, I swear it was reading low. Wasn't me.
We all say that.
So I put the SRM back on it.
Yeah. Just because it was a spare power meter that we had, right? Yeah. Yeah.
And then I waxed my chain and I waxed my cassette, which waxing the cassette is also very, very nice, and it's quiet. And this is kind of a dusty race.
Yeah. Ideally, you shouldn't have to worry about a noisy chain at all, or you'll have a loss of efficiency, but not by much, right?
For what?
By the end of the course in terms of,
For me, I shouldn't, because it's wax, so nothing should get in there, and I should lose no efficiency.
Oh, well, that'd be
supposedly.
good. Yeah. Tires. What tires are you running?
Racing Ralph 2.35 up front and Thunderbird 2.35 in the rear.
Yeah.
I'm the only person I've seen on a Thunderbird here.
Which is crazy to me. This is definitely a course where I would think that I would be running really light duty tires or lightweight tires or tires without big knobs, right?
I think fast rolling's key. I think you don't want to go too thin on the sidewall or in the casing, just because you're going pretty fast, and then there's some sharp rocks up there. So you want a nice sturdy tire, but fast rolling. So,
and I'm doing the snake skin protection.
Good. That'd be good.
So what are you?
Yeah. What are you?
I have WTB Nano 2.1s.
It's a fast tire.
Yeah, it's really fast. It has a good center line. So for the pavement sections, it rolls real fast and it's quiet.
On what bike?
The Cannondale FSI, the new hardtail.
Nice.
Yeah,
it's
it just came out, and it's awesome.
So that means you're running the Lefty Ocho on that one? Ooh, yeah, the new fork.
Thing's great. Yeah, with the new Ocho, it's a tapered steer, so it's a pretty standard stem steer setup. So you can run any stem. So I have NV, the new M6 stem, M5 handlebar. Got an NVC post and the M525 wheels.
This isn't a course where I would look to add on a dropper post.
No, it's not worth the weight penalty.
Yeah, it's not needed really.
Well,
but in
depends
your
who
case,
you are.
In your case, you feel, it definitely raises your level of comfort, right? So I
go faster with it.
Yeah. Going back to the fork really quick, that Lefty Ocho, it used to be like a triple clamp style fork, right? It had like a top clamp on top of the frame and then below it, kind of like a dirt bike fork or a downhill fork. Now it just has just the lower portion, almost like a standard fork where you're missing half of it. Something they aren't talking about that actually reduces your frontal area by quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it's got to be a reduction in drag.
Yeah, weight savings. More aerodynamic. It's great.
So how much does that bike weigh?
Right now it's 20.5 pounds.
Wow.
With pedals, XTR pedals, and
Size large?
size large. Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
So I'm on an XL and I'm 25,
yeah.
5 pounds.
It's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah. This is definitely a course where I would be looking at like, this is a gram counting course, you know, to an extent, like you said, make sure your tires don't slice. But other than that, that makes sense.
But it's also what you're comfortable with, and it's not worth sacrificing comfort and handling for weight if you're going to be out there. You're out there for a long time pedaling on bumpy stuff and the descents and everything. If you're more comfortable with the full suspension and dropper pose, do that.
We've seen people with 140 mil travel bikes even in town today. So rung what you brun type.
Big tires.
The other thing to realize is that the people who have won the race, some people win on a full suspension, some people win on a hardtail. So it's not like told the pros do this. This is what you should do.
Yeah, last year at Howard won. I think he was on an Epic full suspension.
I think so. Do you do anything special to your bike setup for this one? Do you change like a bar width to be more narrow and more aero or something like that?
No, I don't change any position. I just keep everything the same. I'm running a 34 front chainring with the Eagle 12-speed, 1050 in the back. And I don't change anything. And I've seen people do stuff in the past, like wrap bar tape around there in their handlebars so they can get their forearms on with more comfort. But I just keep it the same.
Do you alter your position at all when you're out there riding? Or
no, I like to keep it the same.
Yeah, so you don't do you end up grabbing tight on the bars?
Sometimes I'll do that, yeah. Sometimes I'll bring my hands in and grab the bars. Sometimes I'll move them around a little bit.
Yeah. Do you use togs?
I don't use togs, no, because I find I actually put my hands on top of that area quite a bit. Yeah. So it doesn't. I feel like kind of poke me right in the middle of the palm if I did that.
You'd have to move them in, right, to get a more comfortable position there. Another thing to cover with the equipment side of things is helmets. We didn't cover that.
Oh yeah.
What helmet are you
Stop
running?
Laughing, Chad.
Just wait till we get to Nate. What helmet are you running?
The Cannondale Cypher.
Okay.
And then I put that one has an option to just put an aero cover on.
Nice.
And so I did that honestly just almost as much for warmth as aerodynamics, because those early downhills are cold. I don't want an ice cream headache.
Yeah, you can lose a lot of heat to the head, man.
Brain freeze.
Yeah, exactly. And that air comes over your head like that. Really.
But yeah, I mean the aerodynamics are an added benefit.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. Nate, let's talk about yours. We brought 2 helmets and you already had a helmet.
No, so I have 3 helmets to choose from. The Specialized Evade, the new one, that is aero. It vents a little bit better than the old Evade. And I chose that helmet because we have 3 hours of pretty flat and fast riding. And then I also am wearing a skin suit, the no pins skin suit
by Aero Coach.
Yep. So that's nice, and I get the extra pockets. But when I come back after 80 miles and you get on power line, it's hot. And even I'm on a pack then because it's 2 hours on the way back, and I'm going to need extra water. And when I pre-rode it, I was sweating so much for the power line. Whole climb was 40 minutes for me, maybe. Yeah. Somewhere around there. So what I want to do is at the aid station before that with my excellent Swannies is just to switch to the Specialized Prevail. I want you guys to take the helmet off, dump water on me. Yep. Unless it's freezing. Yep. And then just put the other helmet on in the middle of it, and then have a nice airy helmet. It'll be a little bit lighter. Not that that matters for how, you're right. It's not going to affect my outcome, but at least have have a cooler helmet.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it makes sense. It's going to be important that Chad and I don't get this mixed up and pour ice on them on the start line.
So much to remember.
Start line, ice water on me, and then at power line you're going to pour scratch.
Yeah, of course. Exactly.
That's where you need the puffy jacket.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So strategy for us for support crews.
Alex,
let's talk about that, because you've done this before. We're rookies in this. Yeah. We have a strategy, but we don't know if it's good or not.
It's good.
Okay. I'm sure it's good. You guys sound dialed. Mine is I have my dad here. He had a last minute change of plans and was able to come. and I have musette bags, and I'm just gonna put all my stuff in musettes and do
Awesome.
flying feeds is the hope, not stopping.
That's what you needed.
I do. If I should go buy musette bags, I'm pretty good bike handler, guys.
Would you be up for that?
I would, yeah.
Then yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
It's
because
just
then you can even put like 2 bottles and some food in there, and then you just grab it, sling it over your
One
shoulder,
single grab.
and then just kind of that way you don't have to stop. And I mean, for us, it's an unknown. Depending on if I'm in the front group or a front group, it's an unknown what guys are going to do, and you don't want to be the guy that has to stop and dig through a bag. So that's in my case, it's better safe than sorry to just know I have a musette.
True to form, we need to introduce something new on race day for you. So why not?
Well, I mean, you can slow down. You don't need to. It's not like in the road peloton you need to grab it going 25 or whatever.
Yeah.
Just grab it going
That's true.
5 miles an hour and just grab it.
I want to back up what you said really quick. At Lost and Found, I think I shared this on the podcast earlier, but there were absolute feed zone tactics. Like they were taking place in the sense that basically, and in fact, I saw a guy, I won't mention his name because I think it's fair game, but people might get upset by it. But he actually sagged coming into a feed zone. He let the frenzy unfold, and he actually kind of skirted on the far side of the feed zone, got a little bit away, then jammed on it and kind of got away. He was wearing a pack, nobody else was, so he didn't need to stop, right? So he carried on, and he
Fair game.
That's an acceptable tactic, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think it's fine. There's the whole road thing. You don't attack in feed zones, but I'm not sure if
Not
those
if you're
rules
carrying
apply
your
here.
food the whole time.
Exactly, and he was carrying it with him anyway.
Planned
Yeah,
for this
that's-
specific situation.
So I could see that. And also I find that when you slow down that momentum, and I mean, sometimes maybe a reset's good, don't get me wrong. But when you slow down that momentum and then getting going again, that can be a killer sometimes,
I hate stopping during a race.
Yeah.
I keep, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to,
Go mentality, and you stop, and it just feels wrong. You're like, what happened?
Yeah.
Throws everything off kilter. Yeah.
so we can either do, I'm not going to do the musette bag, but we could do, I was thinking like stop for 10 seconds and then go.
Yeah.
Or we could do it where, Chad is first and I throw my bottles on the ground we talked about before and I get them. And then I just grab I already have everything bagged out. You just grab the Ziploc and I can put it in.
So it's an effective musette. You're just not getting it all in one shot.
Yeah, it's just 2 shots, but I have 3 Swannies.
3.
Podcast listener Brandon's helping us. I like to do everything more, Alex.
Yes. The more complexity we can breathe into it, the better.
So I guess the plan is for where we're stopping or where we're supporting you. There's the tricky thing with Leadville is it's not like the Wild West with aid stations or anything here. They have their aid stations laid out, but support crews have to follow a specific route in driving to those aid stations. You can't deviate from that because there's a lot of private land, and then there's also the course and not a lot of parallel roads. So our hands are kind of tied in the sense that there are really 2 main aid stations that you hit twice, right? Mm-hmm. There's some other aid stations like at the very furthest point out from the course, one that's earlier on in the course. But for us, there's really 2 main ones that we can do. We're planning, and for those that are I guess knowledgeable about Leadville, vernacular, what we're doing is we're going to Pipeline, right? That's the first one. And then the second one, we're not going to the crazy one at Twin Lakes Dam. We're going to go to the alternate one after that. Is that a bad idea or is that a good idea? I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I'm not. I just always thought it was just one big long one at Twin Lakes Dam.
Yeah.
But
apparently there's an alternate, and it's about 2 miles after that.
that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah. It's kind of a mess at that big one, right?
It's pretty crowded.
Yeah. So another thing that we've done to maximize our chances of success at this very daunting endeavor of supporting Nate is making sure that we're always on the left side. So
Left side and
Nate
early,
understands that.
Nate's left.
my left, and early in the
early on in the feed zone.
Yep.
And you're saying early on because that way if you miss us for some reason or we can't connect, then you can at least know that you can stop at the
If I make it to the race aid station,
Yep.
then I am stopped and I haven't seen you guys. I'm going to assume that for some reason you guys got a flat tire, you didn't make it, and I'm switching to on-race course nutrition.
Cool.
Like on the fly. Because if you guys were at the end
Yeah.
and I didn't see you, I'd have to turn around and go all the way back. So just
These are
make-
long aid stations.
Yes. So you guys have to make sure that you're before the aid station.
We'll do that.
And you guys have to pick me out because it's going to be hard for me to pick you out. The other thing we didn't talk about are lens wipes. Do you wipe your lenses, sunglasses on a long ride like this?
No, not usually.
No.
Are you a heavy sweater?
No, not too bad.
Yeah.
My eyebrows.
But I do finish, and then I put on my glasses the next day, and how did I see out of this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
But you don't. You're just in the zone. You don't even.
Yeah,
notice.
by
Yeah.
then that's not.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I would splash water on my face if anything, if it got that bad. But
Yeah.
If you didn't take pictures, Jonathan, you could do my sunglasses. It would be like NASCAR where they clean the windshield. And I have lens wipes. You could just take them and be like, bam, 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 bam. Here you go,
Yeah.
Nate.
No, it's actually, I've done that on long rides, and it's very refreshing.
It is refreshing.
Yeah.
And just make sure when you pour the water on me, I take my glasses off.
Yeah. Want us to change your kit for you too?
That's
Anything
not a
else you
bad
want to do?
idea.
A little more chamois butter.
Yeah.
The only thing that I could have to go to the bathroom, and in that, I guess, are there porta potties in the? How does it work, or can I
I'm
just
sure
go in the woods? Or?
There has to be porta
know.
potties. Yeah, he does.
You don't see
yeah,
them?
He doesn't
I don't know.
stall.
Ripping
When
past
you're-
us.
Four
One year I
times.
peed off my bike, while rolling after pipeline coming
How
back.
do you do that?
Well, rolling downhill, as long as you don't have to pedal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never relaxed enough.
You can't do it
That
anywhere where you have
too
to
is
pedal.
not a
It
skill
doesn't
you're going to
work.
acquire during race day.
No, but so that's one thing I try on race day, and I don't try.
In that case, just go. Just go, man.
When I was a triathlete, I've tried many times to
just
pee.
go.
I've never been able to.
Well, on
It's a hard.
Yeah, aero bike might be tougher.
That's a
you can sit
triathlon
up.
thing.
I mean, triathletes do it. Some triathletes can do it while they pedal.
Yeah.
That's,
Isn't that amazing?
That's a learned skill, though. That
Yeah.
getting those muscles to relax while other muscles are very active, that is not an easy get.
I didn't know this until we were already signed up to volunteer to be bike catchers at
Oh, yeah.
Kona.
Oh.
And then I found out that everybody
That was
did
a hard
that.
lesson.
Oh gosh, that was
They give you gloves.
it was disgusting.
Yeah, that solved
It was
the problem.
disgusting.
That made it.
So I could just
Marginally
pull
less
off to the
disgusting.
woods and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm
no
sure
one's
they
gonna
have.
say anything.
I'm sure they have porta potties.
probably
It's
illegal,
a massive
but
race. So
Look at a sex offender like.
yeah, don't risk it. Just use a porta potty. Yeah, it'll be easier. And especially if you fall and you're trying to take care of business when you're falling, then that could be pretty bad too. So, I guess that more or less covers the equipment side of things.
No, chain rings. Can we talk about that? Because I
You're
want to
running a
rant.
34.
That's good.
Yeah.
You're superhuman running a 34. Do you find that when you climb, do you climb at a lower cadence or higher cadence, or pretty normal?
I probably am more on the lower side.
Yeah.
Coming
Lower
from a mountain
meaning,
bike background.
Like high 80s.
Yeah, like in 80s. Like if I'm like if I did like a hour time trial up a climb or something, I'd probably average in the low 80s.
Up a climb. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
But like on the road.
Oh, on the road, yeah, I'll
Better.
push it up higher. But in this one, I mean, climbing up Columbine, it's low cadence for sure.
Yeah, it's whatever you can
grind.
turn over. Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I choose the 34 because I still want to be able to spin as much as I can where it's steep, and I have a 50, so I have the Eagle 50, so that's a pretty easy gear.
Yeah.
And then there's
you.
still the 10, the 3410 is still good for. I wouldn't want to go 32 because then you might sacrifice. It would be a bummer to come off of a wheel or something and not be able to get back on because you didn't have the gear or something.
I'm going to draw a line right here. So
Yes.
you're trying to keep up with
Yeah.
fast people,
Fast
right?
guys.
Howard's running a 36.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, great. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're trying to keep up with very fast people. The majority of these people here are trying to finish, or
Yes,
maybe
just
trying to
finish.
or maybe trying to, get like that buckle, that big belt
Sub
buckle.
10, sub 9, sub.
So, and I see so many people just running because most bikes are spec'd with 32s these days. And I see a lot of people thinking because this is a flatter race that they need to gear up. They need to go for a 34. And they're amateurs that are going to be finishing, 9 hours if everything works out perfectly, 10 hours, 11 hours more likely. And in these situations, I feel like a lot of cyclists, some cyclists do it out of pride. Some cyclists do it out of just that's what everybody else is doing or that's what my bike is spec'd with. But if you have the choice, I totally advocate for going on a lower gear. If you're an amateur at this sort of race, you're not going to be racing with Alex and the pros. It makes sense to go with a smaller chain ring.
It's not often an amateur is overgeared. They're typically
Totally. Yep. Yeah, it's so common. Everyone's like, I'm afraid I'm going to spin out. And in reality, the amateurs hardly ever spin out.
You want to say something before I start my long rant?
Yeah, I was going to say, I got two quick thoughts. One is, a lot of times if they are going to spin out, they're better off to coast in that case sometimes rather than trying to like spin 120 RPM or something, just getting nice tuck and rest.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is with mountain biking, even if you have the easy gear, you want the easy gear and you want it where it's good and smooth and you can use it. That's great. But then a lot of times it's better where it's technical or loose to run a slightly lower cadence, harder gear, slightly lower cadence than
For
you
traction.
think because you have better traction.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you also have less pedal strokes for pedal strikes. So sometimes I see beginners where it gets technical and steep. They go right to granny gear and they're like, brrr, it's like spinning too much and they don't have good traction. Whereas if you
Hummingbird.
are geared down and you actually have more torque, more traction in the rear wheel. You might use more muscle standing up.
Yeah.
And less pedal strokes overall means that you can kind of time them better through the rocks. So, think about that going up Columbine sometimes, like it gets kind of loose.
Yeah.
Maybe if you can click it down and go a little slower cadence, you might have better traction. And you might be using a little more muscle and less aerobic. You maybe don't need to breathe as much up at high altitude. There's some people who've talked about that as a strategy to run and push a harder gear at altitude to maybe tax your aerobic system a little bit less.
Anaerobic, yeah.
Now, the more common problem that I see is that people have to get off and walk because not because they've lost traction, but because they just they can't spin it.
Just can't turn it over. Yeah.
But
There's two
the
sides to
backtrack,
it.
we've watched. I mean, the more we ride with high level riders, the more, and they come by TrainerRoad or whatever, and we go out and pre-ride a course with them.
Yeah.
We see them do exactly what you're describing, and it's really starting to resonate. And as I apply it, it's like, oh, this does make sense. You have to have the muscle to be able to do it. That's key. You have to have the speed to be able to keep a big gear turning slowly.
Yeah.
But that does seem to be the consensus among the high level riders.
Yeah, when it gets technical or loose, it's just a lot easier.
Yeah.
All right, here it goes.
Okay.
Go ahead,
So
Nate.
for what you just said, Alex, the people, if they want to do that where they click up a couple times or click down, they always have that option, right?
Right.
So there's forums and people are saying, hey, I did a 10:30 last year and I can't decide if I should do a 32 or 30. And everyone says you should be on a 32, which I think is so crazy. And the logic behind it is they're like, you're going to be walking anyways. So you don't want to get dropped in the flats. And we just talked with a 6th place finisher. Yeah. He's running a 32 on Eagle, and he doesn't get dropped in the flats.
Yeah.
So you back there going 9, 10, 11 hours, you're not going to get dropped.
Yeah.
And if you can go to 110 RPM, I don't think the person in front, if they're on a 32 and you're on a 30, they're going to be going 100.
It's not going to be that big a difference.
Exactly. Yeah. And putting out like 300 watts, where in your group, Howard might be doing north of 300, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Exactly, right? And in his other group, they're probably going 220 watts. Right? So you're not going to probably spin out. Or if you're behind them and it's a downhill where they might be spinning out, you should be tucking in and just coasting.
I want to say that I could be wrong here, and somebody will probably pull this out, but I believe that when I was running a 30 and then a 10 on the Eagle cassette, so 30-10, 30 front chainring on my bike, I think that I was hitting 120 RPM at 26 miles an hour with that gearing on my mountain bike. So the majority of the average folks are not going to be going 26 across the flats. They're much more likely to
on
be
a mountain
going.
bike?
No, right?
And even on a road bike, they're not doing it. Even on a TT bike, they're not doing it.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I understand what people like. I can understand how people are led into thinking that they want to go the other way, but it pays to have the gears, and then it pays to have the logic and then the fitness, like you said, to know how to use the gears that you have. But you might as well give yourself a usable range is what you're getting to.
My rant's not done.
Forgive me.
Okay. So there are going to be spots where they walk.
Yeah.
Like the power line on the way back and part of Columbine, they're just going to walk, and that's fine. But there's other sections up above the walk. Yes, please interrupt me.
Is that fine though? Is that fine? I mean, they're resigning themselves to the fact they're going to have to walk because they're making a poor gear selection.
No, then they're going to have to probably be on a 26.
But sometimes it's not.
30% grade. So to give everyone an example.
Most people could ride it, but at mile 80, it's hard.
It's a better bet for them to walk
totally
it.
different.
I am on a 32 with Eagle.
Yeah.
And I'm only on a 32 because my SRM won't allow me to go to a 30.
Yeah.
And if I could, I would, but the trade-off is I'd rather have the power data than to have the 30. And going up power line at a very low cadence, I was like 350 to 380 on that.
At a low cadence.
At a low cadence, right?
And that's a lot of wattage. Your threshold up here is roughly around 275.
Yeah.
So that's way over threshold.
And maybe on that day it was 300 because it was the first day, but still, it's not sustainable for someone who's
Okay. So it's a smarter way to go.
Yeah. But there's all these other parts during the race that are very short, steep, like 30%, but for 20 seconds, and they're not as loose. Like you can ride them. They're not, you kind of talked about pedal strikes and technicality, up St. Kevin's and stuff. And
that's not a factor there.
It's not a factor, right? And other parts of power line is not a factor. But if you could click down even more and you have that 30 and you don't go into the red every time it does that, you're going to race so much faster.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I'm just I don't think anyone at 10 and a half hours is going to get dropped with a 30 instead of a 32.
Right.
Right. Like, because at the front of the race, this other guy, he's going to 32 and he's fine.
Yeah.
And you got to spin more.
Yeah.
And maybe he's not in the very front pack with Howard Grotz.
Yeah.
But I mean, how big is the front pack?
Oh, it depends.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could be
It's a
big.
big unknown.
It's not 500 though.
No.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
10?
It might be something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like what I'm saying is that there's probably 10 people in the race that need the 34 or the 36.
Yeah.
And there's probably 100 that need a 32.
Yeah.
And then everyone else needs a 30 or below.
Yeah.
So, okay, my rant's over.
Okay. Let's close this one out with, I guess, your goals really quick. Time goals. Alex, do you even set a time goal, or is it all just kind of based off of relatively with the group?
Yeah. I mean, I would love to go under 6.5 just because I've done a 6:35, but that said, it really does depend on the group and how fast the group's rolling.
Yeah.
So if the group's rolling fast for the first 40 miles, and I'm able to stay in a group that's rolling fast, then that becomes more attainable. And then also getting in a group after Columbine, it depends on how that goes. If Columbine blows apart and then it's a solo time trial back, then times are going to be slower. If it comes together at all after Columbine, then you have groups coming back, then it's going to be faster. So it does depend a lot on the
dynamics
race. Yeah. And I would love to do under 6.5 would be great. We'll see.
And you're looking for high 200s in the wattage. Ideally, it'd be good.
Yeah, I've never done Leadville with the power meter, so that's why when you asked, I'm like, what? I don't know, because
you have one this time.
I do. I have stages on this time, so I
send
can.
us your power file when you're done.
Is that something you share?
Yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
No problem.
We'll make
I don't have heart rate data. I can't race with the
It's
strap.
it's okay.
Heart rate.
That's fine. It's
Yeah.
fun to have.
I
but
train with heart rate, but I can't race with it just because the strap bugs me. But
Yeah.
I actually have the two-sided stages, so I have
Sweet.
right and a left, and
Excellent.
I got that when I had the foot
That's
injury,
sneaky.
and it's before they came out with it.
Yeah.
I got it when I had that foot injury, so I could sort of pay attention to what I'm doing right versus left.
You were sneaky on that one because I don't think they have a left-right mountain bike one yet. Nate, go ahead. What's your time goal? What's your power goal?
Sub 625.
Okay.
just a little
I'm just
faster
getting on
now.
your wheel.
Alex,
man.
I
You
was
look
gonna
like
say-
you have a really good drive.
Alex, grab his wheel.
That's the goal.
It's a
I'd be
moon
happy
shot, but
with sub 9.
What's
We
your
gotta dream.
sub
No,
nine's the goal, right?
Really like time, yes, but no crashes. And I just don't want any more mechanicals.
Yeah.
I got them all out of the way. But sub 9 is you get that big belt buckle. I feel like I've accomplished something. I feel like I'm like 4 watts per kilo. I think it's within
Yeah.
like striking distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
got
As long as I don't do stupid things.
Yeah.
Take a bunch of caffeine, throw up 400
Attack the first
grams
line.
of carbs.
And as long as we don't screw you up in the aid stations. Yeah.
Have GI stuff. Miss you guys every aid station. Just skip them. Feeling great.
Power goal?
You're poised to have a good day. I think all the stars are in line.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't.
Power goal?
So I've gone back and forth, and I think I was actually going to ask you about this power plan. So I want to get in a fast group, and I know a fast group on that first flat section can save a ton of time and a ton of overall energy.
Yeah.
So up the first 2 climbs, first one's 18-ish minutes, and the next one is somewhere around there too, 20, 18 minutes. I think I was going to ride those around 275 to 280.
Which chances are you'll be getting past doing that.
I think at the beginning of the climb I will, but at the end I won't.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the climb, everyone's going to be like, get out of the way. And then at the end of it, I'll be passing them.
The very least up Sugarloaf, you'll start to be ticking people off if you stick to that plan. Taking people off that passed ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I see with pacing with power that can hold people back is it's really useful, but then like what if you're on some great day that you didn't even know you had in you? So don't let the power hold you back. If you feel like, I bet I could do this and still recover. Like,
Yeah, so I want that to happen on Columbine or the last. Instead of the first 10 miles,
that's true.
try to find
because
that great day.
we always feel pretty darn good in the first bit of the race,
true.
right?
So I want to hold myself back actually.
Yeah.
But and then on Columbine, kind of do a 250 watts and then just let it fade because of the elevation.
Well, yeah, once you get up to 12,000 feet, it's crazy up there.
And then on the power line on the way back, try to hold 300 on all the climbs or more. And that's where I will go deeper if I can do more.
There you go.
Yeah.
And
Leave it for there. That's a good idea.
for as much as I can.
With pacing with power like that, it can be super helpful to just rein back, that the inhibition and everything else to kind of keep yourself conservative in the beginning where you need to be. So then later on you can really.
Racing is so much more fun. It's different at the pro at the front, but when you're doing time trials and in triathlons, when you actually do go slower like you put out less power and you put out more power the second half, it is so much fun because you don't
passing people
and you feel so much better.
Yeah.
You feel like aggressive. You're passing people. Stars are aligned. It's fun.
Yeah. For me, my weakness has generally been starts and I usually come on late in the race. That's always just been something I've been known for, like coming on late, so for me, I always need to like try to put it out of my head and just like go for it early. But that's because some people have the ability to just go so deep off the start and then just crater. Whereas me, it's like, no, I need to actually tell myself to go harder.
In the beginning.
So everyone's different though.
Yep. The last thing that I want to touch on, you mentioned that like 1 watt difference, you figure could save you a good amount of time, right?
I think 1 watt difference is about 2 minutes.
And that's in like average power, you're saying?
Yep. 1 watt average power is 2 minutes over the course, or 1.5, I think. So 50 watts more would be about an hour and 40-minute time savings.
Which if you blow up too early, 50 watts of loss is very, very, very possible.
Yeah, that's where riding the climbs a little easier, and the flats and the fault and the downs, pedaling those, you're going to gain a lot.
And everyone can think of who's done like a TrainerRoad workout. Sometimes you do these really intense workouts and your normalized power is high, but your average power is low. When you're climbing, you don't want to climbing is like average power, right? Just that's how many kilojoules it takes to get to the top. So it's so much easier. Like for instance, you might be doing a very intense workout and your average power turns out to be the same average power as you were to do petit, which is like 60 minutes of aerobic riding. So if you just would have stayed like consistent rather than really spiky and really easy, you would go a lot faster. And I think over the course of Leadville, having a more modulated power output, of course you're going to put more on the climbs, but not going so deep in the climbs and then just
blowing up and resting.
Resting on everything else and kind of preparing for the next climb.
Yeah. I think it's a smart
strategy.
Choice. And even though at 1 watt, it seems like a small difference, if you think about it at the end of a 8, 9, 10 hour day, think of, I know that you've done this before in a workout when you were at 279 watts and you wanted to say 280, or you were 150 or 149, you wanted to say 150. And you really try at the end of that long ride to make it say that, it takes a lot of work to make it budge 1 watt. So
think of that over 9 hours.
You'd have to really spike it at the end to move it.
It takes a lot of work.
And you think the little things like a clean chain, maybe you save 3 watts, 6 minutes.
That's a lot.
That's huge, right?
Adds up, man. Well, Alex, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's
great.
This is going to be an exciting day tomorrow.
Well, I hope so. No drama.
We'll hopefully have, if anybody's watching this before the race happens, look to our Insta story. We'll try to put up content. Internet's super spotty up here, but we'll try to put up some content for you all so you can cheer Nate on from afar and all the other racers you're supporting. Thanks everybody for joining us. Remember, you can submit training questions at trainerroad.com/podcast. You can talk to all the other podcast listeners at the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast Facebook group, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks everybody. Cool. Chat soon.
Thanks everybody. Thank you, Alex.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.